Hello friends, I am Dr. Jay Singh from the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad, and my lecture is on John Milton's Paradise Lost. This lecture is third lecture in the series on lectures on Paradise Lost by John Milton. The main objectives of this lecture are to understand the epic features in Paradise Lost, to understand grand style of John Milton in Paradise Lost, to understand major themes in Paradise Lost, to understand John Milton's universe in Paradise Lost. First, I will give an introduction to the term epic. The term epic is derived from Latin term epicus, which is derived from the ancient Greek adjective epikos. The term epic stands for a narrative poem that deals with some important action, usually heroic action, in dignified and elevated style. Some important features of an epic are: it has considerable length, it has elevated style, it celebrates heroic adventures, mythical or historical. Most of the epics begin in the middle of the things. In an epic, setting is vast, covering many nations, the world or the universe. An epic begins with an invocation to muse. An epic begins with a statement of the theme. In an epic, we find divine intervention in human affairs. The epic heroes embody the values of the civilization. When we talk about the great epics, there are two great classical epics in Greek, Iliad and the Odyssey of Homer. In Latin, we have one great epic, Aeneid by Virgil. In English, we have Paradise Lost by John Milton. Now, we will discuss Paradise Lost as an epic. Paradise Lost can be classed among epic poems. In its aspect, its divisions and its style, it resembles Homer's Iliad and Virgil's Aeneid. It depicts a unique event, the fall of man. Its subject is derived from the Old Testament. The nature of this theme is such as to give the poem a universal character. John Milton follows Homer and Virgil and proposes the theme of the epic in the very beginning when he says, "Of man's first disobedience and the fruit of that forbidden tree, whose mortal taste brought death into the world and all our woe with loss of Eden." The subject of Paradise Lost is the transgression committed by Adam and Eve in eating the fruit of the forbidden tree and their subsequent loss of Eden. In the classical epic, main characters are men of heroic proportions, because only such characters can steer our imagination and arouse our sympathies. Not only the hero, but also his associates are expected to show heroic powers and capacities. In Book 1, Saturn is a character with heroic qualities. He is huge in size, he has a big shield and a tall spear. John Milton uses epic similes in this epic. For instance, he compares Saturn's huge bulk with the sea beast Leviathan. This comparison, elaborated in 7 lines, while dominantly concerned with size, also produces other impressions such as trickery, the falseness and the lack of caution on the part of man when close to danger, all of which are associated with Saturn and will be amplified later in the Paradise Lost. Now, we will discuss major themes in Paradise Lost. The proposed theme of Paradise Lost is religious, and it can be divided into 3 sections. The first is disobedience, the second is eternal providence, the third is justification of God to man. John Milton's idea of justification is completely different from the contemporary uses. He uses this term in the sense of showing the justice that underlies an action. John Milton wants to show that the fall, death and salvation are all acts of a just God. To understand the theme of Paradise Lost, a reader does not have to accept John Milton's idea as a vindication of God's actions. Rather, the reader needs to understand the idea of justice that lies behind the actions. The first theme of John Milton's argument revolves around the word disobedience and its opposite, obedience. The universe that John Milton imagined with heaven at the top, hell at the bottom, and earth in between is a hierarchical place. God literally sits on a throne at the top of heaven. Angels are engaged in groups according to their proximity to God. On earth, Adam is superior to Eve, humans rule over animals, even in hell, Satan sits on the throne higher than other demons. This hierarchical arrangement by John Milton is not simply a coincidence. The worldview of the Middle Ages, Renaissance and Restoration was that all of creation was arranged in various hierarchies. The proper way of the world was for inferiors to obey superiors. A king was a king not because he was chosen, but because he was superior to his subjects. It was therefore not just proper to obey the king, it was morally required. Conversely, if the king proved unfit or not superior to his subjects, it was morally improper to obey him, and revolution could be justified. This instance is from John Milton's personal life because he opposed the king. In Paradise Lost, God places one prohibition on Adam and Eve, that is, not to eat from the tree of knowledge. Instead of the prohibition to eat the fruit, the focus is on the obedience to God's ordinance. The proper running of the universe requires the obedience of inferiors to their superiors, but not obeying God's rule. Adam and Eve bring calamity in their lives and in the lives of all mankind as well. The first part of John Milton's purpose in Paradise Lost is to show that disobedience leads to a breakdown of hierarchical social order with disastrous consequences. Some have argued that John Milton puts himself in a contradictory position in Paradise Lost, because he supported the overthrow of Charles I. In his political writings, John Milton makes it clear that obeying an inferior is equally bad as disobeying a superior. In the case of king, the people must determine if the king is truly their superior or not. Thus, John Milton justifies his position towards both Charles I and towards God. John Milton's theme in Paradise Lost, however, does not end with the idea of disobedience. John Milton says that he will also assert eternal providence. If man had never disobeyed God, death would never have entered the world, and man would have become a kind of lesser angel. But Adam and Eve gave into temptation and disobeyed God. However, this transgression provided an opportunity for God to show love, mercy and grace, so that ultimately the fall produces a greater good than would have happened otherwise. The general reasoning is that God created man after the rebellion of Satan. His stated purpose is to show Satan that the rebellious angels will not be missed in heaven, and God can create new beings. He endows man with free will and allows Adam and Eve to exercise free will, who in turn disobey God. If God had stopped Satan, then Adam and Eve could not get an opportunity to exercise free will. Therefore, the providence to exercise free will is one of the major themes in Paradise Lost. eternal providence moves the story to a different level. Death must come into the world, but the Son steps forward and offers to sacrifice himself to death in order to defeat death. Through the Son, God is able to temper divine justice with mercy, grace and salvation. Without the fall, this divine love would never have been demonstrated. Because Adam and Eve disobeyed God, mercy, grace and salvation occur through God's love, and all mankind by obeying God can achieve salvation. The fall actually produced a new and higher love from God to man. Now, we will discuss John Milton's grand style in Paradise Lost. T.S. Eliot, while praising John Milton in his A Note on the Verse of John Milton, says, "What he could do well, he did better than anyone else has ever done." He further says, John Milton's poetry could only be an influence for the verse upon any poet whatever. The general thrust of T.S. Eliot's criticism is that John Milton's grand style is both so difficult to accomplish and sometimes difficult to understand that it causes a deterioration in the poetic style of those who are influenced by it and cannot meet its demands. John Milton's poetic style in Paradise Lost has justly been described as a grand style. Its grandness lies in the greatness of a conception, in the exercise of a rich imagination, in the employment of dignified words arranged in an impressive order. This style is grand because it produces the impression of loftiness, enormity and sublimity in the reader's mind. One of the most striking ingredients of John Milton's style in Paradise Lost is the long, complex, involved sentences which produce in the reader a feeling of wonder, amazement and admiration. The essential quality of John Milton's grand style, its extreme elusiveness, contributes in making his style richer than others. The most important element which makes John Milton's style grand is his handling of blank verse, which truly creates the sense of elevation among the readers. In this way, his poetic style reaches the level of excellence that it can be called grand style. Now, we will discuss John Milton's universe as it is represented in the Paradise Lost. The Miltonic universe includes heaven, hell, chaos and earth. In John Milton's England, the debate between geocentric view of the universe proposed by the ancient Roman astronomers and the heliocentric view advocated by later astronomers such as Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo and others was fiercely debated. In Paradise Lost, this debate between the two groups of astronomers is evident when John Milton mentions Galileo's telescope in the 5th book of Paradise Lost. He says, "Earth and the garden of God with cedars crowned, above all hills, as when by night the glass of Galileo less assured observes, imagined lands and regions in the moon." In Paradise Lost, Adam asks Raphael whether the earth is stationary with the rest of the universe circling it, or whether the earth circles the sun along with the other planets. The geocentric versus heliocentric debate is a part of the cosmos that John Milton presents in Paradise Lost. In general terms, Milton describes a universe with heaven, hell at the bottom and chaos in between. Earth dangles on a golden chain dropped from heaven, and by the end of the epic, a bridge connects hell and earth. Let us discuss all these parts briefly. At the top of the universe is heaven. It is inhabited by God and those angels who did not rebel against him. The primary quality of heaven is light. God is pure light and of a such quality that the angels must observe him through a cloud. The angels themselves are also a type of stunning pure light, but not comparable to the light of God, because they give off colors. Within heaven, God sits at the top of a mountain on his eternal throne. He is shrouded in a cloudy mist because of the quality and intensity of the light he emanates. Most important part in Paradise Lost. Hell is the antithesis of heaven. In a sense, hell is an ironic parody of heaven. Hell for Milton is literally the underworld. Heaven is the zenith of the universe. Then there is the great gulf of chaos and night, and finally, at the bottom, underneath everything is hell. In the first book of Paradise Lost, John Milton described hell, one great furnace, flamed, yet from those flames no light, but rather darkness visible. The phrase darkness visible is oxymoron. Heaven, which is pure light, is also pure goodness. Hell is the opposite, pure evil and pure darkness. In fact, a darkness so pure that it is visible, a contrasting quality to the blinding light of heaven. At first, hell seems like Dante's place of miserable torment. The fallen angels wake lying on a lake of fire, surrounded by sulphurous fumes. However, this first image of hell is soon replaced by a second image. The demons build a capital, Pandemonium, with a palace, a throne for Satan, contrasting with God's throne in heaven. Milton also introduces psychological dimension of hell through Satan's soliloquy in book 4th, in which he says, "Which way I fly is hell, myself am hell." This inner hell is as much a part of Milton's universe as the physical lake of fire. In fact, for John Milton, the inner turmoil that makes anywhere Satan is into hell is probably the foremost hell. Therefore, hell as a spiritual state of mind that cannot be avoided. At the top of John Milton's universe is heaven, and at the bottom is hell. In between lies chaos with his consort night. Chaos and night are depicted as characters, but they are actually personifications of the great unorganized abyss that separates heaven from hell. For John Milton, relying on earlier writers and thinkers, chaos was the formless void that existed before creation. It was the abyss, the darkness and the mighty wind out of which God created first heaven and later on earth. John Milton describes chaos as eternal anarchy and a wild abyss. He adds that it is the womb of nature, and perhaps her grave of neither sea nor shore, nor air nor fire, but all these in their pregnant causes mixed, confusedly, and which thus must ever fight. In Paradise Lost, John Milton has to journey across chaos to find earth. This journey is long and arduous, and is one of the accomplishments of Satan that makes him seem heroic. The earth that is depicted in Paradise Lost is different from the earth we know today. John Milton describes earth as a creation by God after the rebellion of Satan and his followers. Raphael tells Adam that God created earth through the sun to keep Satan from feeling pride that he had dispeopled heaven. Earth and man are created so that man through trial could reach the state of angels, and earth could become a part of heaven. On earth, paradise, that is the Garden of Eden, is the paramount place. The hill on which Adam receives his vision of the future from Michael is apparently, through this is not stated, the highest place on earth. So, when Adam and Eve are banished from the garden, they leave the perfect place on earth and enter a world that is both flawed and unknown. Earth is attached to heaven by a golden chain. Had Adam and Eve not fallen, there is a sense that at least metaphorically the chain would have slowly pulled earth up to heaven, so the two places could merge. The fall changed the nature of the original plan. The fall of Adam and Eve, however, did not change the connection of earth to heaven. The chain remains there, although at the end of Paradise Lost, a wide bridge across chaos connects hell to earth. Man must either find the difficult way up the chain or ramble across the wide causeway to hell. Dear friends, with this description of all the aspects related to Paradise Lost by John Milton, all the 3 lectures on John Milton's Paradise Lost are complete. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.